Good afternoon. Over the last 3 weeks, I have told you what direct and indirect financial measures have been put in place to help you through this coronavirus pandemic. It is clear from the response that we have received that the effects of the pandemic and the government actions have caused widespread disruption to the lives of the vast majority of you. The financial disruption, of course, will vary from household to household and business to business. But there cannot be many of you who are not concerned about what the future holds in store and are questioning when the economy will start moving again. The COVID-19 benefit, or the MIRA for short, opened for business yesterday morning and as at this morning had received 1,143 applications for direct financial support. In addition, I can tell you that in the last few weeks, the numbers of people registered for job seekers allowance and indicating that they are unemployed went up by 457 people, representing a significant increase on recent figures that we have reported to the public and Tynwald. Some of you will now be collecting welfare support for the first time. Some of you will be facing serious and significant drops in your income. And for all of you, this must be a massive shock and a time of worry and uncertainty. We are doing our best to process your applications as fast as possible, but I ask you to bear with us during a period of unprecedented demand. Many of you may, through your businesses, be kept in your jobs and roles through our wage support scheme. This scheme will be available online for registrations shortly after the Easter weekend, and we will start to meet the wage support requirements as soon as possible thereafter. The Coronavirus Business Support Scheme has to date received some 2,327 applications. We have already paid out over £1 million to qualifying businesses and expect to continue to receive applications. We are working as fast as possible to process these claims and to get the payments to qualifying businesses as soon as we can. However, I understand there has been some element of confusion, delay and misunderstanding with the processing in some areas. We are working with the Department for Enterprise to try and overcome these issues and bring clarity to these processes. Please understand that whilst we have to get the money to you, we still have to have a responsibility to the taxpayer in general to try and ensure that public funds are being distributed appropriately and that some legitimacy is being applied in terms of verifying a business's and an individual's status. This applies equally across all our schemes, and unfortunately I must warn the minority that we are and we will undertake both proactive and reactive compliance activity in order to verify the validity of all the claims. We will seek the firmest of actions against anybody who has deliberately set out to seek the misappropriation of public funds at this time. Many of you have written to me to tell me how badly your business finances have been affected and how worried you are. I know that the amounts on offer will only provide the bare minimum of support, and therefore it is vital that you use the full range of your skills and initiative to find a way for your businesses to survive the next few weeks and maybe beyond. I have made it clear to you that you will find a listening ear across government in both tax and national insurance and customs and excise. If you need to defer your statutory payments to aid cash flow, then please call us. It is only by utilising the full range of options open to you, and by that I include your banks, your employees and the government schemes, are you likely to find the optimum way through these difficult weeks. I can also report a growing postbag that seeks more widespread support into sectors that we may have initially excluded from the schemes. I want you to know that our sector-by-sector approach has been undertaken with the protection of public funds in mind. We can and we will continue to consider whether the schemes need to be broadened, but I also want to reiterate that guidance will shortly be available to allow any business to write to the Chief Financial Officer explaining why assistance is required and how that assistance will sustain jobs. There will be a specific procedure to do so, which will be available shortly after Easter. I know this approach may be frustrating to some, but a full and complete utilisation of our financial resources at this point will leave us with a more difficult position when it comes to managing our exit and recovery from this significant shock to our economic system. The overall cost of the financial support packages are substantial, and so is the loss of revenue and income that we are potentially facing. So we must recognise that whilst this is difficult, whilst some may feel frustrated, we must nevertheless be responsible with our public finances. We must be mindful of the future. If we expend too much now, then we will be in a more difficult position when it comes to managing our exit and our recovery from this pandemic. It is vital that we have the financial ability to get back up and running. Some of you will recover much more quickly than others. Some of you may struggle and some indeed may fail. But we must remain optimistic that many of our core businesses and industries will remain in good shape. We need to be ready to focus on and invest in our core sectors, to seek new opportunities and possibly to reshape our economy. And we need the financial assets to be able to do that. I have mentioned exit and recovery, and these are becoming increasingly important words. Our focus is, of course, the protection of life. But I want you to know that we are working closely with the medical advisors as to how, when the time is right, we might effect a controlled return to work and what measures should be in place to manage the health risks should those still be present. I also want you to know that we have a first-class team of medical officers advising us. But the truth is right now that it is still too early to say how and when we can bring into effect a safe return to work. But I do know this, that every second, every minute, every hour and every day that we stay at home, the closer we get to a semblance of normality. Going out risks your health, your job and our economic future. I cannot overemphasize that the success of the measures that we have in place protect the health of the nation, but they are also equally as important for our economic recovery. The sooner we can control this virus, the sooner we can return to work and return to some normality. All of you have a part to play in this. This is, and it must be, a national effort. The coming days are vital, and we need to dig deep now into our innermost resolve. The challenge is to eradicate coronavirus on the Isle of Man. We can and we should believe that this is possible. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions, and I believe the first question is Tim Glover from Manx Radio.
That's to my Mr. Cannan. We initially set aside, I think it was 100 million from reserves. Is that enough from what you're seeing of the initial stages of people applying for these grants?
Well, I'm confident that we set out initially a robust framework of support for the economy and for individuals. But this is constantly under review, and you'll be aware that we have tweaked that over recent days as issues have come to the fore. And we're currently working very, very closely with the Department for Enterprise to understand how this support is being affected in terms of where the applications are coming from and where we are seeing increasing pressure. So overall, we had planned initially that the support schemes could be in place for up to 6 months. But as I explained in my very first major briefing, that it's not only just the schemes and the expenditure around those schemes, it's also the income or the lack of income that we're seeing. And actually it is the lack of income that is actually more of a concern rather than the specific amount that we're expending. But of course, combined, they represent a major challenge for us. So the answer to your question is we continue to review and look closely at how we're delivering our financial support. But I want to re-emphasize, again, as I have done previously, that the critical factor in all this is that we must respect the health measures in place and that those health measures are directly interlined with us getting back to a position where we're well equipped to try and help support people back into work and also help the economy deal with the aftershocks, if you like, of this pandemic.
Obviously, we're dealing with, as has been emphasised from day one, two crises here. Is there any tension between the health and economic needs of the island?
Well, I can tell you that absolutely the Council of Ministers is completely united in the direction that we're taking, that we absolutely believe that the measures that are in place will protect the health of the nation, and we've put protection of life at the very top of our agenda. But we all recognise collectively that sooner or later lockdowns will run their course, and so we do need to have sensible discussions about exit strategies and recovery periods. And what I can tell you is that we're jointly engaged with the medical advisors and across the Council of Ministers, to try and overcome and understand how and when those sorts of measures would come into play. But there's no tension as such. I mean, we're absolutely united in what we're doing and firmly believe that the measures in place will deliver the outcomes that the island needs to move forward and overcome this virus. Thank you very much. So Chris Cave from Energy.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cannan. More than 2,300, you say, have applied for the small business grant, which you said is available to help them through this pandemic. How many have actually received money to date?
Well, as I said, I gave you a figure there of £1 million has been distributed out so far to date. I will clarify with you later the exact numbers of businesses that have received that money, but £1 million has been sent out.
But you're unable to say how many of the small businesses who've actually applied for this?
I think
grant.
a number. I think you'll find the number of around 600 or so at the moment have received the direct support, and others are being worked on as we speak.
So there are many businesses that have been without money for up to 4 weeks since you made an announcement about financial help. You said there are issues with validity, but why has the communication been so poor?
Well, I think that you'll have to understand that, for government as well as the private sector, this tsunami, if you like, the implications from this pandemic came upon us on a really quick basis. I don't think the communications have been poor. I think it's taken time to put in place the structures around making sure that the application process was dealt efficiently, that the communication structure was in place to ensure that those administering the applications worked closely with the tax office, had proper and adequate access of this. I've emphasised to you this morning that we want to get money to businesses and to individuals as quickly as possible, but that also does mean to say that in doing so we have to take some responsibility for checking the legitimacy and validity of all these claims. There's so many different circumstances out there, Chris, so many different situations that businesses find themselves in, that in many respects dealing with them all on an individual basis is incredibly difficult, and therefore I sort of reject actually the fact that we've not dealt with this in as quick a time frame as possible. And I think that when you benchmark us against other nations and how quickly they're getting support to their businesses, I think we'll stand up pretty well in terms of that comparison.
You may reject that notion, but there are businesses out there who say they've applied for this grant, yet they've not heard whether they are actually eligible to receive it. And they're also told not to apply for MIRA if they've applied for that grant. And it does seem for many businesses out there that the communication on this particular issue has been poor.
Yeah, so I think this morning I've acknowledged there's some issues there in terms of delays, some miscommunication possibly that's been going on. We're working to overcome those issues with any project like this, with any reaction like this that's been undertaken. There are a number of issues below the surface that need resolving. We're overcoming those issues. A lot of businesses are getting the support they need. We are having to deal with a number of issues around that, and we're going to continue to work closely to sort it out. But I think the critical thing is, yes, as well as trying to sustain businesses in the short term, we also have to be careful and ensure that we're preparing ourselves to exit out of this. It's all right just, potentially being forced into a position, or I don't want to be forced into a position to expend all our financial resources now and then find that in 2 or 3 months, when the critical period comes, to put in place the support necessary to take the island forward again, that we're struggling to do that. So I think we have to be careful and controlled about how this process is being done, but we are working hard to overcome any issues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And Rob Pritchard.
Good afternoon, Minister. I just firstly want to revisit a question I did ask you a few weeks ago. It probably seems more appropriate now, given that many of these schemes are underway, and coincidentally, it echoes a little bit what Chris was asking about there. In terms of the MIRA, obviously being more recently launched, but also in a general sense, if you could put a figure on it, what is the average waiting time from someone applying to actually receiving the support?
So, as I said, MIRA officially launched yesterday morning. The online system and application form is in place. We've had over 1,000 applications. Those applications are still coming in. We are now seeking to process those as quickly as we can, reasonably in the circumstances. Ask for some public understanding in terms of our ability to handle that level of applications. But I hope that within the next week, people will start to receive their money.
Okay, thank you. And the second question on a slightly different note, there was talk around a week or so ago with the UK government about unused holiday allowances for workers. Now, there was talks about proposals for rolling them forward for up to 2 years to make sure workers weren't missing out on their unused holiday allowances. Is something similar being considered here or in place already?
Well, that's not on the agenda at the moment. Lots of things are being considered for the future, but that's not an immediate policy decision that's been brought forward. So that's not currently under consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So Paul Moulton, MTTV.
Hello, Mr. Cannan. The jump in the unemployment, is that what you were expecting? Will it now, do you think, plateau? And thirdly, really, will it go down? Because obviously we hear about these jobs at superstores, the creameries and the post office. Do you think there is some slack there that can bring this number down soon?
Well, I think to a degree we're expecting that number to increase in terms of the numbers coming forward to receive MIRA and who will be registering for the job seekers allowance and possibly for other benefits as well. There are jobs cropping up, but these very much seem to be short-term roles. I'd be delighted if people manage to secure themselves some sort of short-term temporary employment in one or two areas, particularly around driving and logistics in these vital supply chains. I think we're as prepared as we can be for a quite significant rise in unemployment over the short term. What we need to do is probably understand more where that level is likely to be. But even going further forward from that, as we get industries back working in the future, and as I said, I'm still unclear as to when that will be, we will then start to be able to understand where the core issues lie in the longer term and what we need to do to help shape the economy to make sure there's many job opportunities for people as possible.
Okay, and can you clarify about the VAT? I mean, UK HMRC said that there will be no charge, interest or penalties on any amount of deferment. You set out the first, 1 quarter, but you could be open to negotiations. Will you be clarifying that? I mean, can people sit back, or should they be looking to hit the VAT after the first 3 months? Well,
I think everybody's circumstances are different. I mean, I asked businesses to act responsibly. If businesses can pay their statutory payments, please make your statutory payments. It's definitely part of the national effort now to keep some money coming into government. But that offer is open across the board to any business who feels it would be in their advantage to defer a VAT payment at the moment, and there will be no penalties or interest applied for anybody who does so. Thank you very much. Alex Spell, BBC.
Hello, Minister. You said that businesses in the future will be able to write to the Chief Financial Officer to explain their circumstances. This is going to be no small administrative task. What do you expect the cost implications to be in terms of staffing and resources in the CFO's office?
Well, already, I mean, we will be operating those guidelines in conjunction with Department for Enterprise. If we need more staff in, Alex, we will bring staff in. Frankly, those sorts of costs probably pale into insignificance against what we're actually trying to achieve at the moment. There will be minimal in the great scheme of things. It's important that we do our very best to try and facilitate another route for those businesses who may feel a bit excluded at the moment or frustrated, in order for them to try and access government schemes, so on the basis that they can justify appropriately that they will benefit, that it will leave them in a position for the future. And it's an incredibly difficult situation for us at the moment. But as I said, it is a question of making sure that we do as much as we can to protect public funds. And of course, our core sectors, particularly now at the moment, we're looking at financial services, the digital economy, the manufacturing industry. We don't know or understand at the moment what support they might need to help themselves recover, if you like, what we might need to do as an island to gain an advantage as a jurisdiction, both to stay, remain, and perhaps increase economic activity. So we've got to have the resources to be able to support those industries more broadly in the future. Some of them are robust enough to get through the short term, but may need support in the longer term. And that's what we're trying to do by bringing some measure of control to access to public funds at this time.
Thank you. And just to touch on the government wage support scheme, which I know a number of businesses are keen to take advantage of. We're hearing from some businesses they're unhappy to have learned that they will still have to pay contributions of NI and income tax on these. Now, given that these payments are coming from Treasury, why are they being deducted from?
Well, again, of course, each individual circumstances will potentially be different. If somebody's just receiving £280, for example, and that's all they're being given, then obviously they'll be paying a minimal amount of any statutory payment. Obviously, if they're receiving half their salary plus the 280, then they will be receiving an increased amount. But effectively, it becomes very, very difficult just to sort of widespread give money in this way with no accountability. I think it's appropriate that we still keep some discipline around the structures of government, around employers' national insurance, around national insurance for employees as well. Because if we don't, we run the risk that actually when we come out of this and we start bringing back these disciplines and charges, we will find ourselves in an even worse position. So it is about maintaining what we regard as discipline within the financial system, within the financial infrastructure, to ensure that government remains has an overall understanding of who's being paid and in what circumstances.
Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you. Duncan Fawkes from Isle of Man Newspapers.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cannan.
Good afternoon.
Governments around the world, including Mr. Trump in America, are all praying and sending their best wishes at this time to Boris Johnson in the UK. Is the Isle of Man government, doing a similar thing?
Well, I'm assuming that the Chief Minister, if he hasn't already, will be sending the island's very best wishes to Boris Johnson. Clearly, it was a shock to see the events unfolding last night, and absolutely, I'm sure on behalf of all and everybody on this island, we wish him every success in his battle against this virus.
And have you still got strong lines of communication with the government there in the UK?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, across Chief Minister, the Cabinet Office, there's strong links into the UK government. I know the Chief Minister has been communicating with senior ministers across in the UK, and we too have our own links into HM Treasury, and those communication lines are open. So absolutely, important that we maintain that line of communication. And I know the Chief Minister has dealt with a number of issues through utilising the contacts that he's built up over the last 4 years or so. So yes, very much so. Important that we keep that going. So
my second question.
That I think is that. So thank you very much indeed.